Hi, this is Fija. Welcome to my legal classes. My topic is about historical background and the status of women in India. Introduction to the topic. The position of women in society reflects the standard civilization. It is a truism that the woman's status has changed from time to time in India. At the time of matriarchal families, it is a known fact that women were physically stronger than men. But menstruation, pregnancy, and childbirth have reduced the physical strength, and she has to depend on men for food and protection. Later, matriarchal families has changed to patriarchal families, and polygamy was introduced. But the status and position of women in India has been a controversial subject, as it reflects the contradictory and the paradoxical nature of Indian society. While on the one hand, woman has been called Devi or goddess, the perfect guide or guru of her children, on the other hand, she has been criticized for her unpredictable and impulsive nature, and has even been denied the basic right of existence as a human being. The status was influenced by economic and political conditions at different times. The introduction of concept of equality through various provisions in the Indian Constitution, followed by laws concerning marriage, divorce, inheritance, maintenance, widow marriage, prohibition of sati, dowry, child marriage, etc., laid the foundation of their present status. Status of women in Vedic period. The position of women during the Vedic period was glorious on account of freedom and equality. Women studied in Gurukulas and enjoyed liberty in every sphere. The great women like Apala, Vishwavara, Yamini, Gargi, Gosha stole the limelight and became front runners in society. In the Vedic age, women used to be well educated. Some of the hymns of Rig Veda have been attributed to female rishis. The wife has been blessed to live as a queen in the husband's house in Rig Veda. This shows a high status of women. There was no prohibition in the remarriage of widow and also no discrimination between a boy and a girl. As a result, girls were permitted to undergo thread ceremony, Upanayana Samskara. There was absence of the Parda system, right to select life partners. Women were allowed to choose their own life partners. They joined Gurukulas and participated in public debates or discourses. Women fully participated in religious rituals. In the Vedic age, women enjoyed all the religious rights and privileges which men possessed In the Vedic age, there were no images to worship or temples to visit. Marriage was union of the two individuals of two sexes who had attained full physical development. Women did not remain indoor, but moved out freely. They publicly attended feasts and dance. Women was considered more powerful than men. The Brahmavadini students who donned the sacred thread, remainder of the holy vows, tend the fire and study Vedas. Status of women in post-Vedic period. During the post-Vedic period, certain limitations and restrictions were placed by Manu on the rights and privileges of women, and certainly the status of women suffered, and they were confined to the four walls of their houses. The birth of girl was treated as a disaster for the family. Girls were denied access to education. Girls were not allowed to undergo thread ceremony, Upanayana Samskara. During this period, pre-puberty marriage system was organized. Thus, the marriageable age of girls was lowered to 9 or 10 years. Surprisingly, in post-Vedic period, the woman's right to property was recognized and the concept of Sridhan prevailed. As Manu defined, Sridhan means that which was given to her before the nuptial fire, in bridal procession in token of love. The Upanaya rites for the girls were completely abandoned, which can be approximated to the periods of early Smritis, the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata, and the early Puranas. Freedom of women not only in deeds and speeches, but society became polygamous. During this period, there was disappearance of polyandry, except in rare cases, as Pandavas practiced polyandry by Draupadi in Mahabharata. The observance of the of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and the women had only duty to obey their husbands blindly. The position of women under Manu Code. A little girl, a young woman, or a woman advanced in year must never do anything even in her own dwelling place, according to her mere pleasure. During childhood, a female must depend upon her father. During youth, upon her husband. If her husband being dead, upon her son. If she has no sons, depends upon the near kinsmen of her husband. In default, upon those of her father. If she has no parental kinsman, upon sovereign, a woman must never given herself as she likes. She should never enjoy independence. Perhaps this was the basis of the status of early Hindu women. Even today, it is his laws which keep millions helpless in the prison of Hindu orthodoxy. Manu says that that daughter should be given in marriage by her father at proper time. She should be given to a distinguished, handsome boy of the same caste. In laws of Manu, women and low caste Sudras are bracketed together. But he also expressed a notably high appreciation for worthy women. He equated a woman with slave, and his laws epitomize complete submission of men to men. The earlier documents of Hinduism shows various attitudes, both appreciative and depreciative, toward women. Position of women in Puranas. There is combination of praise and blame for women. In spite of prohibition laid upon the feminine, there is outstanding praise of goddesses, who in the Puranas occupies a position of great importance. According to Matsya Puranas, women accompanied their husband to the temple, as in Vedic period, in Puranic period too. Women appeared in public assemblages. Women traveled and engaged in trade. However, they were not encouraged to travel abroad. The supreme importance given to Grihastha ashrama for sustaining social life implied the responsibility of women in building up society. Kautilya mentions eight kinds of marriage: Brahma, Prajapati, Arsha, Daiva, Gandharva, Asura, Rakshasa, and Paisacha. He forwards the practice of loyalty towards each other. Kautilya advocated that widows could lead an independent life. They were allowed to remarry with or without the consent of their in-laws under certain conditions. Kautilya permits divorce for women in case of long absence of the husband or when the partner suffered from terminable illness or infertility. The Arthashastra considers the question of dissolution of marriage. Position of women in Mahabharata. Mahabharata, the greatest epic, depicts the social life of India. It was a moral encyclopedia in Indian literature. In Mahabharata, we see women in the home, at court, on the battlefield, and in intellectual and spiritual capacities. There were lots of women, but Gandhari, Kunti, Draupadi, Savitri, Damayanti, Sabulata, and Satyabhama, the great women who, through Grihinis, were also reputed Brahmavadinis and saintly ladies. Women had freedom to acquire knowledge. In Mahabharata, women are not only pictured as beautiful, mild, tender, and long suffering, but they are also women of energy, strong will, and daring pride. In Mahabharata, there is the highest prize for women and at the same time the bitterest denunciation. They are capable and serviceable member of society. Position of women in Ramayana. The Ramayana is the one of the most effective epic of all Hindu sacred writings. Women have no individual identity. Their personality is blended with men. The Ramayana enjoys the lifelong inseparability of wife and husband. The Ramayana reaffirmed the deep-seated Hindu conception that husband is a woman's greatest deity. The character of Sita has become the grand example to Hindu women as the embodiment of purity, chastity, piety, and fidelity. Hindu women were denied freedom of thought. Women under different religions. Both Buddhism and Jainism were ascetic religions, and they have not devoted much attention to the beauties and ideals of Lord. The Buddha was reluctant to admit women to his faith, and the Digambara Jain hold that women can never get salvation except by first being reborn as man. But Buddhism did not subscribe to this dharma. Buddha regarded women as feeble by nature and therefore cautious men while keeping their company, and also placed women under more strict discipline. but he did not consider them inferior or detestable. They were fully qualified to tread the path of morality and spirituality. The Sikh doctrine brought revolutionary change in the status of women, and they fully participated in Sangat and Pangat established by Guru Nanak. The parda or gungat, that is veiling of women's face, was eradicated. The Guru Nanak has said on the position of women in his Bani. His Bani is full of references to child marriage, parda, and conditions of widow. He has also referred to the life of a householder and the family as a social unit. The Islamic teaching is to raise human dignity and honor. It relieved mankind from disgrace and provided a higher and honorable place in human dignity. The Holy Quran points that men and women both have helped and cooperated with each other in development of human life. Both have equally shared the burden of life. Man has by the Holy Quran that he should not ill-treat his wife or even divorce and discard her. If he does not feel satisfied with her, as Allah in His mercy might have put some good in that also. Status of women during medieval period. During medieval period, Muslim invaders came to India. As a result of the Muslim impact, the ancient Hindu order was almost completely destroyed. The position of a woman was distinctly subordinate, and in the long run came to be understood as a servant of the male and dependence upon him in every stage of life. As a daughter, woman lived under the worship of her father, as a wife under the tutelage of her husband, as a widow under the care of her eldest son. Her life was a state of perpetual worship. The girls were unwelcome in this period because of dowry system. It was impossible to marry the girls to suitable bridegroom without handsome dowry to bridegroom parents. The poor and lower middle class families ruled because of this social evil. She was killed among some tribes even when in infancy. Indian women were strictly confined to home and domestic cares. Thus, all her dreams were concentrated on providing herself a devoted wife to husband and in trying to please him. Female education during medieval period. It is true that the girls were not altogether deprived of parental affection and love. Scope of her education was limited. Child marriage restricted the proper education of women. Education imparted to them on condition that they are taught not by outsider, but by their own parents and brother. Girls of royal families were undoubtedly imparts military and administrative education. They were queens who governed their respective kingdom after the death of kings. Sati, a popular custom. Hindu widows. Either they ended their lives by burning themselves. Sati was a same means of the reunion of the wife with her husband after her death. Parda was mentioned generally by the Muslim women and also by some sections of the Hindu women, particularly belong to the upper and well-to-off classes. Parda was strictly observed among high-class families of both communities during Mughal period. Parda was no less strictly observed among middle-class Muslim ladies who dare not move out of doors without a veil, who consisted of a burqa or a chadar, and hide her from top to toe. Child marriage. Early marriage had become almost an universal feature of the medieval Indian social life. Girls rarely exceed the age of 9 or 10 years, and the boys 16 or 17 before they were wedded. The Hindus joined their children in marriage on the age of only 4 or 5 years, generally connected with early marriages, continue to exist even today in some parts of Bihar and UP, and it is popularly known as Kene or Diragamane. Sometimes, for the sake of wealth, young man will marry a older than himself, mostly poor girls married to old men. Dowry and divorce. The nature of dowry varied according to the economic standard and social status of the parties concerned. It was gift to bride firstly and was known as pan or tilak. while in the second sense it was termed as Jatuka or Dahej. Dowry was originally given willing to the daughter by the parents at the time of her marriage in the lieu of her share in the property, meant exclusively for her benefit and economic security at the time of crisis in her life. Now it is turned into a social evil. Women's position during the British period. During British period, the position of women had undergone drastic changes, mainly due to Western impact on the Indian social cultural pattern. The position of the Indian woman had reached the maximum degree of deterioration. Ideally, women were considered a completely inferior species, inferior to the male, having no significance, no personality. Her existence was taken for granted. Her opinion, her desires, her likes or dislikes were never to be considered. The daughter is considered by the father as a burden to be disposed of quickly as an object for having male children. She was not even worthy of receiving education. Great social reformers like Ram Mohan Rai and Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar did not overlook the economic background leading to the miserable plight of women in women social injustice heaped on them. Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar highlighted the economic reasons for infant marriage, polygamy, etc. in their writings. Jyotirao Phule and his wife Savitribai Phule were pioneers of women education in India. Phule started his first school for girls in 1848 in Pune. In the late 19th century, through leading social reformers in different parts of India, a movement for women's upliftment for their education and legal rights became widespread. But these movements and social reform activities were limited to the upper middle state of society. Women in post independent India. After independence, a number of legal measures were enacted to improve the standard equality and life of women. The Special Marriage Act 1956 provided for a form of marriage for a person who does not profess the Christian, Jewish, and Hindu religions. The Hindu Marriage Act 1955 pertaining to Hindus, Buddhists, and Sikhs and Jains introduced uniformity of treatment in the matter of matrimonial law. Hindu Succession Act 1956 conferred on women the right to exhaust and hold property. The Suppression of Immoral Traffic in Women and Girls Act 1956 sought to prevent the exploitation of women and girls. The Prostitution and Immortal Traffic Act 1958 abolished prostitution. The Dowry Prohibition Act 1961 removed some of the special disabilities suffered by women in regard to dowry. Maternity Benefit Act 1961 passed in 1961. Domestic Violence Act 2005 prevents women from domestic atrocities. With independence, women were granted equal status with men. Adoption Act 1956, Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, and legalizing of abortion are all in favor of women with the rapid urbanization and industrialization of the century. Article 14 of the Constitution ensure equality before law. Article 15 prohibits any discrimination, and Article 15 of Subclause 3 empowers the state to make special provisions for women and children. The Commission on Self-Employment of Women, appointed by the Department of Women and Children Development, submitted their report, which has become the basis for planning of programs and activities for self-employment and opportunities for women. She may be a member of the Indian Parliament, magistrate, a member of local board or municipality, or an organization of philanthropic work. Mere 2.3% women are administrator and manager. 2.5% professional and technical workers, all of whom collectively earn 25% of the share income. With the liberalization policy and restructuring, women are likely to be further marginalized. More and more women will be forced out of their homes to join a vast unorganized labor force as the burden of welfare shifts to the family from the state. International pressure was the reason for the government establishing a committee to examine the status of women in India.
in preparation for the International Women's Conference on Mexico in 1975. The report submitted by the Committee for Equality. Thanks for watching.